Pay attention to the woman in the gray peacoat. It's 4:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon in late November. She's standing at the eastbound platform of the Cleveland RTA station, scrolling through her phone. Her name is Heather Whitmore. She's 24 years old, recently graduated from Cleveland State with a degree in graphic design. She's on her way home from a freelance consultation, a potential contract with a small marketing firm downtown. She checks the time. The train is running late. Now, pay attention to the man standing approximately 15 feet behind her. He is not looking at his phone. He is not checking the arrival board. He is watching Heather Whitmore. He has been watching her for 3 minutes and 40 seconds. His name is Ephraim Tadesse. He's 39 years old, originally from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. He works night shifts at a food processing plant in Euclid. He lives alone. At 4:51 p.m., the eastbound train pulls into the station. Heather boards through the center doors. Tadesse boards through the rear doors of the same car. Within 90 minutes, Heather Whitmore would be reported missing. Within 6 hours, investigators would be searching for her phone signal. Within 3 days, they would discover that Ephraim Tadesse had been watching women on the RTA for months. This was not a chance encounter. It was a selection. Heather Whitmore grew up in Lakewood, an inner-ring suburb west of Cleveland. She was the youngest of 3 siblings, the only daughter. Her parents, Robert and Diane Whitmore, described her as determined and independent. After graduation, she'd moved into a small studio apartment in Ohio City. She was building her portfolio, taking freelance work, preparing to launch her own design practice. Her Instagram feed was professional, clean layouts, color studies, branding mock-ups. It wasn't for socializing. It was a showcase of her ambitions. That Tuesday morning, she'd posted a photo of her workspace with the caption, "Client meeting today, fingers crossed." By evening, the post would be evidence. At 5:03 p.m., Diane Whitmore received a text from her daughter. "Meeting went well, on my way home." At 5:47 p.m., Diane called Heather's phone. It went straight to voicemail. At 6:15 p.m., she called again. Voicemail. At 7:30 p.m., Diane drove to Heather's apartment in Ohio City. The lights were off. The door was locked. Heather's car was parked on the street where she'd left it that morning. Diane Whitmore knew immediately something was wrong. Her daughter always answered. Always. At 8:02 p.m., she called Cleveland police. Detective Sergeant Andrea Novak caught the case. 22 years with CPD, the last 8 in missing persons. She'd worked runaways, abductions, and cold cases. She knew the statistics. The first 48 hours were critical. Novak started with the basics. Heather's apartment showed no signs of forced entry or struggle. Her laptop was on her desk, her wallet and keys on the kitchen counter. Her phone was not in the apartment. Diane provided Heather's phone number. The carrier confirmed the device had been powered off at 5:19 p.m. The last cell tower ping placed it near the West 25th Street RTA station. Novak requested surveillance footage from the RTA. The footage arrived at 11:47 p.m. that night. Detective Novak watched the eastbound platform camera from 4:30 p.m. onward. At 4:47 p.m., Heather Whitmore entered the frame. Gray peacoat, black boots, leather messenger bag. She stood near the yellow safety line, checking her phone periodically. At 4:48 p.m., a man entered the frame from the stairwell. Average height, dark jacket, baseball cap pulled low. He took a position 15 feet behind Heather. He did not look at the arrival board. He did not look at his phone. He looked at Heather Whitmore. For 3 minutes and 40 seconds, he simply watched her. At 4:51 p.m., the train arrived. Heather boarded. The man followed. Novak switched to the train's interior cameras. Heather took a seat near the center doors. The man remained standing at the rear of the car, partially obscured by other passengers. His face was visible for only brief moments. Dark skin, close-cropped hair, possibly early 40s. At 5:06 p.m., Heather stood. She was 3 stops from her usual exit at West Boulevard. She moved toward the doors. The man moved with her. At 5:08 p.m., The train pulled into the Trisket station. Heather exited. So did the man. He maintained a distance of approximately 20 feet behind her. The platform camera captured them both ascending the stairs to street level. The street-level camera captured Heather turning west on Trisket Avenue. The man followed. At 5:14 p.m., Heather turned into the parking lot of a small strip mall. A Turkish grocery, a check cashing store, a laundromat. The lot had no security cameras. At 5:19 p.m., Heather's phone was powered off. She was never seen on camera again. Detective Novak issued a BOLO for a black male, approximately 40 years old, dark jacket and baseball cap, last seen following the victim near Trisket Station. She released still images from the RTA footage to local media. By Wednesday morning, the story was running on Cleveland news outlets. Heather's photo appeared alongside the surveillance stills. The headline, "Woman missing after leaving RTA station." The tips began immediately. 3 callers identified the man in the footage. His name was Ephraim Tadesse. He was a regular on the RTA. He worked night shifts in Euclid and rode the train home each morning. Multiple riders had noticed him watching women on the trains. One caller described him as intense. Another said he made her uncomfortable. She'd changed seats to avoid him. None had reported him. Tadesse lived in a small duplex on East 185th Street in Collinwood. He rented the upper unit. He'd lived there for 6 years. Neighbors described him as quiet, polite, kept to himself. He worked at a meat processing facility. He had no known criminal record in Ohio. Detective Novak obtained a search warrant. At 2:30 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon, CPD executed the warrant. Tadesse was not home. His shift at the plant didn't start until 10 p.m. Inside the apartment, investigators found a small, sparsely furnished space, a mattress on the floor, a folding table and chair, a hot plate and mini fridge. No television, no internet service. In the bedroom closet, they found a locked metal toolbox. Inside the toolbox, a small digital camera, a stack of photographs, and a notebook filled with handwritten entries. The photographs were surveillance-style images of women on the RTA, sitting, standing, exiting trains, walking on platforms. None appeared aware they were being photographed. The notebook contained dates, times, descriptions, physical descriptions, clothing, behavior patterns. Some entries included routes and transfer points. The most recent entry was dated November 19th, the day Heather Whitmore disappeared. Gray coat, brown hair, 447 eastbound, got off Trisket, followed to parking lot. The next line read, garage, blue Accord. Investigators found a set of car keys on Tadesse's kitchen counter. The key fob was for a Honda. At 6:15 p.m., Ephraim Tadesse arrived home from a grocery run. He was met by Detective Novak and 4 uniformed officers. He did not resist. He did not speak. He was transported to CPD headquarters for questioning. The interrogation began at 7:30 p.m. Tadesse declined to answer questions without an attorney present. A public defender arrived at 9:45 p.m. The interrogation resumed. Novak presented the surveillance footage, the photographs, the notebook, the keys. Tadesse said nothing. At 11:20 p.m., his attorney requested a recess. 15 minutes later, the attorney returned with an offer. Tadesse would provide information about Heather Whitmore's location in exchange for considerations on sentencing. The offer was declined. Prosecutors needed evidence, not deals. At 12:40 a.m., Tadesse's attorney tried again. Tadesse would lead investigators to the location. He would cooperate fully. In exchange, certain charges would be reduced. Detective Novak left the room. She contacted the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office. 30 minutes of negotiation followed. At 1:47 a.m., a limited immunity agreement was signed. Tadesse would lead investigators to Heather Whitmore. His cooperation would be considered during plea negotiations. At 2:15 a.m., Ephraim Tadesse left CPD headquarters in the custody of Detective Novak and 3 other officers. Tadesse directed them east, past Collinwood, past Euclid, into Wycliffe. They drove for 18 minutes. At 2:33 a.m., Tadesse indicated a turn onto a narrow access road behind an industrial park. The road terminated at a storage facility. a sprawling complex of corrugated metal units, most appearing abandoned or unused. Tadesse pointed to Unit 47. The unit was secured with a padlock. Tadesse provided the key. Detective Novak opened the door. The smell hit first. Human waste, sweat, fear. Inside, the unit was approximately 10 feet by 12 feet. No windows. A single battery-powered lantern provided dim light. In the far corner, bound with zip ties and duct tape, was Heather Whitmore. She was alive. Her wrists were raw and bleeding from the restraints. Her lips were cracked. She was shivering despite the layers of clothing Tadesse had apparently provided. She could not speak when they first reached her. Dehydration, shock, trauma. Paramedics arrived within 6 minutes. Heather was transported to Metro Health Medical Center. Ephraim Tadesse was arrested on scene. He was charged with kidnapping, unlawful restraint, and aggravated assault. Heather Whitmore spent 4 days in the hospital. She was severely dehydrated, malnourished, and suffering from exposure. Physically, she would recover. Psychologically, the damage was profound. Heather told investigators she'd been walking to her car in the Trisket parking lot when Tadesse approached from behind. He'd pressed a knife to her ribs and forced her into a blue Honda Accord parked nearby. He'd driven her to the storage unit. He'd bound her wrists and ankles. He'd left her in the dark. He'd returned twice. Once, to bring water and crackers. Once, to bring a blanket. He'd told her he was keeping her safe. He'd told her the world outside was dangerous. He'd told her she would understand eventually. Heather had no idea how long she'd been in the unit. She'd lost track of time in the darkness. 47 hours. That's how long she'd been missing. The investigation expanded rapidly. The digital camera found in Tadesse's apartment contained over 300 images, all surveillance-style photographs of women on the RTA. Some images dated back 18 months. The notebook contained 72 entries. Most were observational notes. Some included follow attempts. Heather Whitmore was the only entry that indicated successful abduction. Investigators contacted the women whose images appeared in the camera. 23 were identified. All confirmed they'd been regular RTA riders. None had been aware they were being photographed or followed. 3 women reported feeling uneasy on the trains in recent months. 2 had changed their routes. 1 had stopped riding the RTA entirely. None had filed reports. Tadesse's background emerged slowly. He'd immigrated to the United States from Ethiopia in 2008 at age 24. He'd entered on a refugee visa, fleeing political instability and ethnic conflict in Addis Ababa. He'd settled in Cleveland, where he had distant relatives. He'd worked a series of low-wage jobs: dishwasher, warehouse laborer, night shifts at the meat processing plant. He'd lived alone. He had no close friends. Co-workers described him as withdrawn, rarely spoke, never socialized. In 2015, Tadesse had been briefly hospitalized following a mental health crisis. He'd been placed on a 72-hour psychiatric hold after a welfare check found him barricaded in his apartment, claiming people were following him. He'd been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. He'd been prescribed antipsychotic medication. He'd been released after 3 days. There was no record of follow-up treatment, no record of medication refills after the initial prescription. His employer had no knowledge of his mental health history. His landlord had no knowledge. The system had no mechanism to ensure he received ongoing care. Ephraim Tadesse's trial began in August of the following year. The defense argued diminished capacity. They presented his psychiatric history, his refugee trauma, his untreated mental illness. They argued he'd been disconnected from reality, that his actions were driven by delusions, not criminal intent. The prosecution acknowledged Tadesse's mental health struggles. They acknowledged the systemic failures that had left him without treatment. They also presented the notebook, the photographs, the surveillance, the planning. Assistant District Attorney Nathan Greaves was direct in his closing. Trauma may explain behavior. It does not excuse it. Mental illness may explain delusion. It does not erase intent. Ephraim Tadesse planned. He stalked. He selected. He abducted. He kept a human being in a storage unit for 2 days. That is not delusion. That is crime. The jury deliberated for 11 hours. Ephraim Tadesse was convicted on all charges. He was sentenced to 28 years in prison. Heather Whitmore did not attend the sentencing. She submitted a victim impact statement that was read aloud by the prosecutor. "I don't know if I'll ever feel safe on public transit again. I don't know if I'll ever feel safe walking alone. He took 47 hours of my life. He took years of my peace. I'm alive. I'm grateful, but I'm not the same." Heather left Cleveland 3 months after the trial. She relocated to Columbus, where she lives with her older brother. She works remotely as a graphic designer. She does not use public transportation. Diane Whitmore became an advocate for mental health services and public transit safety. She testified before the Ohio legislature in support of expanded crisis intervention programs and mandatory treatment compliance for individuals with severe mental illness. The RTA implemented enhanced security measures. Additional cameras were installed. Transit police presence was increased. A public awareness campaign encouraged riders to report suspicious behavior. The storage unit in Wycliffe was demolished in 2023. The property was sold to a logistics company. There is no marker, no memorial. Heather Whitmore's gray peacoat hangs in her closet in Columbus. She hasn't worn it since that November afternoon. She's thought about throwing it away. She hasn't. It's a reminder of survival, of resilience, of the 47 hours she endured. Heather Whitmore is alive. That's what matters most.